Next up in the merchandise planning process, we're going to cover steps 3 and 4. Step 3 is setting inventory and product availability levels. So retailers have to classify their stores into categories by size. And so when we say size, what we're really talking about is our selling space square footage. When you classify your stores into size, it's easier for you to set up your assortment per store. Larger stores get a larger assortment of products. Smaller stores get a smaller assortment of products. Generally, all stores carry the same variety, but the assortment varies per store that you're in. And sometimes the variety does too, but we're going to focus on assortment for the sake of conversation purposes here. So if we have our category stores of A, B, and C, what we're going to do is set up a model stock plan for each category. And what the model stock plan shows is the number of each SKU in the assortment plan that the buyer wants to have available for purchase in each category of the store. So we created our assortment plan in the previous step, in the previous lecture. And now we're going to take that assortment plan and we're actually going to determine how many of each SKU to have in our stores. So if this is a model stock plan, let's say for our category 1, category A stores, right? So what we're going to do is we're going to take our blue jeans, let's say it's blue jeans here, and we have our length and our size. And this is just a very basic model stock plan. We know that when we're buying jeans, there's about 100 different characteristics that we need to use to identify them. But for simplicity's sake, we're going to use length and size. So what we're looking at here is if we go to size 4 short, then we're going to carry 7 pairs of those jeans in our category A large stores. We know that we are going to carry, if we look at our size 6 medium length, 8 pairs of jeans. And that's how many we want in that store at that time. And so in our model stock plan, one of the things we have to determine is our product availability levels. And this is all still part of step 3. So product availability, it's the percentage of demand for a particular SKU that is satisfied by the retailer. So what this means, if we're thinking about this and trying to get it in our heads here, the percentage of demand for a particular SKU that's satisfied by the retailer, what we're saying is when a customer comes in the store, what percent of the time do we want them, what percent of customers do we want to buy that product at a given time? Now, product availability is rarely 100% for a retailer. And oftentimes we'll think about this as high, medium, and low. But product availability is rarely 100%. If 100 people go into the store with the intention of buying an item, but the retailer only has 90 of those available, the product availability for that item is 90%. Okay? If 100 people go into the store with the intention of buying an item and only 75 are available, the product availability for the item is 75%. Right, so let's look at product availability here. And let's think of a grocery store. If a grocery store is selling milk, if we're at Kroger and we're buying milk, what do you think the product availability is for milk? Product availability for milk is very high, and you might even put that at 100%. If 100 people go to the store with the intention of buying milk, 100 people will get to buy milk that day. That means the product availability for milk at Kroger is 100%. Let's think about Kroger green beans. If 100 people go to the store to buy green beans, what level of product availability is acceptable for that product? Let's say it's medium, or medium to high. So let's say 75%. If 100 people go to Kroger today with the intention of buying green beans, Kroger might have 75 cans. That means the product availability for green beans is 75%. Why is it okay for green beans to have a product availability level of 75%? What is green beans? What are green beans? They're a vegetable. Right? And there are plenty of other green vegetables on the shelf that customers can buy instead of green beans. So those 25 people who don't get their green beans can get something else green. and they'll probably still be satisfied. Let's think about vanilla extract. What product availability do you think Kroger puts on vanilla extract? Maybe 50%? 30%? If 100 people go to Kroger today to buy vanilla extract and only 30 people are going to be able to get it, that's a 30% product availability. Why is it okay for vanilla extract to have a 30% product availability at Kroger? Most likely it's because that item isn't one of Kroger's core items. And so Kroger doesn't mind if people aren't able to get it. And customers don't mind as much if they're not able to get it. They can add it back to their shopping list next week. Let's think of one more item. Let's think of a dog toy at Kroger. What product availability is acceptable for a dog toy at Kroger? Probably very low. Maybe 10%, 15%. If a customer goes to Kroger and they're looking for a dog toy and they don't find it, it's okay because it's not one of Kroger's core items and it's not something that's going to upset a customer. So when we're thinking of product availability, I want you to consider your favorite retailer. And based on your knowledge of the retailer and what you've just learned about product availability, think about their items. Think about what they carry in the store. And think about how to categorize those items and how to determine what you think an appropriate level of product availability is for those items at that retailer. Now, there's one other thing we have to think about when we're setting our inventory levels and our product availability levels, and that's safety stock. Safety stock is another term for backup stock. So it includes the stock that's not out on display, but that's available to the retailer so they don't have a stock out if the demand exceeds the forecast. So we can also think of this as what's in the back room. So a retailer often has product on the shelf, and depending on how much space they have in the back of the store, they're also going to have a few in the back. So when we're setting our product availability levels, we're taking into consideration what's on the shelf and also what's in the back. So what is our stock on the shelf and what is our safety stock levels? If our safety stock is too low, our retailer is going to risk losing sales. So choosing that appropriate backup stock is critical. If we lose our sales, we might lose customers. Now, what happens if our safety stock is too high? Because you might be thinking, well, we should always have 100% product availability. We should always have enough in the back to satisfy every customer. Well, that can be a bad thing because scarce financial resources are wasted on needless inventory. And those resources could be more profitably invested in a different product or maybe even a different piece of your variety and assortment or a different financial venture. So having too much safety stock is a risk, and having too low safety stock is a risk. So how the heck do we determine what the appropriate levels of safety stock are? Well, step 4 is when we start to establish a control system for our inventory. And so in this step, we establish a control system for how orders, deliveries, and inventory levels and sales evolve over time. And so our objective is to manage that flow of merchandise into our stores so that our inventory is minimized, but our merchandise is always available when the customers want to buy it, based on our predetermined product availability levels. So there's a very fine line. And what we're balancing is the cost of carrying the inventory and the lost sale due to our stock out. So when we're looking at our safety stock for staple merchandise, we generally use an automated continuous replenishment control system to manage that flow of merchandise, to make sure that we're carrying the exact appropriate amount of each item. So we already talked about this a little bit, right? But for copy paper, which is a staple merchandise item, when Staples estimates how much blue copy paper they're going to sell in the month of May, They use the same number that they sold in May of 2015. And if they have extra, it's okay because they'll sell it in April. Our automated replenishment system monitors our inventory levels for each SKU and automatically triggers a reorder when inventory falls below that predetermined level. So when we're trying to set our order point, which is when we want the system to order backup inventory, to order more inventory from our supplier, there's a few things the buyer has to do before the system can take over. So what the buyer has to determine is the backup stock or assortment plan, the basic stock or the assortment plan, what we're going to carry, and they also have to determine the level of backup inventory necessary for the store. And then once those two things are determined, the system can monitor inventory levels and automatically reorder when inventory gets below a specified level. So when we talk about our order point, the definition of an order point is the point at which inventory available should not go below. If it goes below the order point, the retailer will run out of stock before the next order arrives. So this is the actual equation. So we're going to do a little bit more math here, so have that calculator handy. When we're trying to determine to calculate the order point, what we're looking at is our sales per week, and sometimes that's sales per month or sales per quarter, depending on how often the retailer orders. But what we're looking at is the sales per week. We're going to look at our lead time. We're going to look at our review time, and we're going to look at our safety stock. All right, so we know our sales per week, and that's based on our historical sales data. Well, what is our lead time, and what is our review time? Lead time is the time it takes to get from the manufacturer to the retailer. So if the manufacturer says, when we receive your order, we will deliver 3 weeks from that date, then your lead time is 3 weeks. And let's assume our review time is 1 week. Our review time is the time it takes the retailer to get the merchandise off the delivery truck, to get it sorted through, to get it tagged with price stickers, and to get it put out on the shelves. So let's say that takes a week. And let's say that we know our safety stock is 50 units, okay? So let's just say we've determined over time that for blue copy paper, our safety stock is 50 units. So we know our lead time is 3 weeks, our review time is 1 week, our safety stock is 50 units, and our demand or our sales per week is about 100 units. So we're selling 100 units of blue copy paper a week. How do we figure out what our order point is? Well, this is our equation. Our demand or our sales per week, so we sell 100 reams of blue paper per week. We know our lead time is 3 weeks, our review time is 1 week, and our safety stock is 50 units. And so our order point in the system is 450 units. So the system will automatically track the amount of inventory on our shelves, it will track our backup or our safety stock inventory, and it will know what each individual sale is at the counter. So this is where our information systems really helps us out. So when the system sees that the order that we only have, the order point, 450 units of blue copy paper in the physical store location, it will automatically send another order to our manufacturer of blue copy paper. So that's how staple merchandise works. That's how we control and monitor staple merchandise inventory. Let's talk about a control system for fashion merchandise inventory. This is a lot more complex than our automated ordering system with the order point for staple merchandise. When we talk about fashion merchandise, there's 2 systems that buyers use for fashion merchandise categories. And we're just going to do a brief overview of both. We're not going to dive as deep into these plans this semester. But our merchandise budget plan is the first system that a fashion buyer might use. And what the merchandise budget plan does is it specifies it specifies the amount of merchandise in dollars that needs to be delivered each month. So it's not talking about the number of units that needs to be delivered each month, but the number of dollars that needs to be delivered each month. And so what it's doing is the plan is actually specifying how much money can be spent each month to achieve our sales, margin, and inventory turnover objectives. So this is based on our retailing performance goals. And what happens is the buyer purchases inventory and has specific amounts delivered to the store each month with sales goals in mind. So you're only bringing in as many items as you think you're going to sell each month based on sales dollars. The plan takes into consideration different promotions and discounts so that the amount can be achieved. So we look at, if we know we want our monthly sales to be, if you look at the spring here in the first column, if we know we want our sales to be $130,000 and we anticipate promotions of $16,500, then we know we need to bring in $113,000 worth of merchandise. And that takes a lot of different factors into consideration, but in general, that's what the plan is setting up. So we know we need to order enough inventory to make $130,000 in sales. And again, this plan doesn't specify SKUs or quantities at all for your merchandise. All it's specifying is the general amount of sales dollars that you need to make that month. And then the second plan is an open to buy system. In the open to buy system, after all the merchandise has been purchased through the merchandise budget plan, and after the retailer has determined how much inventory based on sales dollars they're going to bring in each month, the retailer uses the open to buy system to keep track of the actual merchandise flows for each month. So which merchandise is actually coming to the store and how it's going to be performing. And so the open to buy system, it monitors the merchandise flow. It determines our inventory levels. It also shows us when our merchandise is scheduled for delivery, and it records how much merchandise was purchased each month. And so the open to buy system is good for retailers because it gives us on almost a daily or weekly basis what our inventory levels are, when our next order is coming, and how much has already been bought. And so what this system is designed to do is to allow buyers a chance to correct errors they made along the way of too much inventory or too little inventory, because it does give us a very visual representation of what our inventory looks like at a given point in time for that fashion merchandise inventory. Now, we talked about how sometimes you can't make corrections along the way. Sometimes you might be stuck with your inventory. Sometimes you might not have enough inventory. But this system does give the buyer a little bit of a heads up on what's going on and gives them time to figure out a plan to really manage how to deal with either an excess in inventory or a potential stock out of inventory. I know that's a lot of information, but that wraps up steps 3 and 4 of the merchandise planning process. The next lecture will touch on steps 5, 6, and 7.